How's it going, everybody? Troy here with the Half Court Report, and if you're like me, you just watched the draft lottery not even 3 minutes ago. I just saw the Spurs get the #1 pick. The Spurs! I told my wife before the lottery, I feel like it's going to be the Spurs or the Blazers, and it was the Spurs. So San Antonio, congratulations, you are about to get lots of national TV games. So what I figured I'd do is just my quick instant reaction to the picks and where I think some of these players might go. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe. Got a really fun YouTube channel here, so would love for you to be a part of it. So the Spurs, I mean, obviously they're gonna pick Victor Wembanyama, and what a perfect fit. They need a center. They have that French history with Tony Parker, Boris Diaw, and I'd have to look it up. There's some sort of connection with the current team that Victor is on, and I think Boris has a front office role or an ownership role with that team, Metropolitan 92. But Victor, you know, real quick, generational talent, 7'4", shoots threes, blocks shots, rebounds. I heard something today, the biggest prospect since Kareem, maybe, well, I guess since Lou Alcindor at the time, but I mean, maybe, but the guy he's gonna be good by all accounts, so he's the consensus #1. Charlotte #2, I would assume they would go with Scoot Henderson. And another year, Scoot might even be the #1 pick. He likely would be. But that's a great consolation prize for Charlotte. I guess there's questions, you know, with LaMelo Ball. Do you play him? I guess you'd play him and Scoot together. Could you always trade out of that pick? You know, Charlotte has lots of options there. Third pick, that's where it's going to get interesting. So, Portland has the 3rd pick. So, could they go with somebody like Brandon Miller? You know, they need a small forward. Could they go for athleticism and get one of the Thompson twins? The whole point that Portland is trying to do is run it back with Dame Lillard, potentially with Jeremy Grant, and then of course they have Shaedon Sharpe, who they drafted last year. They have Anthony Simons, you know, they have some youth on the roster, they have some veterans on the roster. So do they get another young guy from the draft? Do they trade it for a veteran? They have options too. #4, Rockets. You know, they have their new coach in Ime Udoka. They have Şengün. They have Jalen Green. They have Kevin Porter. Maybe they'll have James Harden in free agency. I know that the scuttlebutt is that they think he might sign there. Maybe homecoming for him. So that #4 pick, you know, they could get the other Thompson twin who's still on the board. They could get somebody like Cam Whitmore. They could get Anthony Black. I'm a big fan of him. That's a possibility. And then #5, Detroit. Sorry, Pistons fans, you fell 4 spots to that #5 pick. So that's a bummer, but I mean, you did get Cade a couple drafts ago. You got Jaden Ivey last year, who looks like he'll be a pretty good pick. So for the Pistons, you know, they need a lot. You know, they really do. Just looking at their roster, what really sticks out to me is that 3 spot. You know, what's going to happen with Bogdanovich? Because he's like the only veteran on that team that's worth anything. So do you go for a 3-man in that, and for that, do you trade out of the pick? You know, lots you can do there. Then #6, Orlando. They have the #6 pick, and they have the #11 pick. Looking at their roster, you know, they're really set. They have Fultz and Suggs at the guard spots. They have Wagner. They have Banchero. They have Wendell Carter. So I would say the 2 guard is probably their weakest. But, you know, it's also one of those things. Do you draft for fit? Do you draft for need? What do you do? So in a case like that, you know, that's when you can get somebody like, and just looking at the two guards, there aren't really a lot. Probably Anthony Black would be the best two guard that would be on the board by that point. So I think that would be a good pick, especially, you know, he's a long and athletic player. They like those types of guys. And then, you know, who knows, maybe it's one of those things that, you know, the number 6 pick, you go for the safe pick, and then, you know, we're skipping ahead. But then, you know, maybe when you get to the 11 pick, maybe you swing for the fences and get somebody like, you know, maybe Leonard Miller, you know, somebody like that. Or, you know, if you're, you know, really feeling it, get somebody like, I mean, would it be too high for Bilal Coulibaly? I mean, I really like him. I've seen him more as a late first rounder, but he's really moving up the draft boards. Then Pacers at 7, they're of course set with Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner. They've got Mathurin, who they drafted last year. So they're definitely a team that's on the rise. You know, they do need some good role players. You know, a guy like Grady Dick might fit with them. A guy like Taylor Hendricks might work for them. Pick 8, the Wizards. I mean, they have Brad Beal, assuming they'll re-sign Kyle Kuzma. They'll have Porzingis, who they'll probably re-sign. So I feel like they need just some really complementary pieces that can maybe help those guys shine. Then you got the Utah Jazz at number 9, Mavericks at 10, Orlando again at 11, who I mentioned. And then Oklahoma City, Toronto, and New Orleans rounds out the rest of the lottery. So later in the lottery, you know, you have guys like perhaps Nick Smith Jr., maybe Cason Wallace. You've got, you know, maybe you want to take a flyer on Derek Lively. That might be an option, especially for a team maybe like Oklahoma City. Would they want Derek Lively? Because they, very similar to Orlando, they like those long and athletic players. Just imagine like Derek Lively and Chet just like in that front court. That would just be insane. Arms for days, blocking shots for days. Maybe a team would take a flyer on Gigi Jackson in the late lottery. He's the youngest guy in the draft. That could be a possibility. You know, that's kind of what we're looking at. But wow, the Spurs, I am happy for you guys. Just real quick look at their roster, pairing Wembanyama with the guys that they already have in place. Maybe they'll re-sign Trey Jones at point guard. I know he's a free agent, but then you've got Devin Vassell at the 2 guard, Keldon Johnson at the 3, Jeremy Sohan, who I think is a pretty good player as well. And then the center spot is just wide open because right now signed for next year. Kim Birch, Charles Bassey, and Sandro Mamukashvili. I don't really remember how to say his last name. But, you know, all of those guys are like third-string centers. So it's good to have a guy like Victor Wembanyama. I don't feel like he could be going to a better place. And Greg Popovich is just like, hey, I was going to retire, but maybe I'll just sign on for another 5 more years because now I've got the super stud Frenchman and Victor Wembanyama. So, hey, congrats Spurs fans. Of course, I'm going to have more draft content pretty regularly as we get closer to the actual draft, and I will have mock drafts aplenty. So thanks for tuning in to today's video. Make sure you drop a like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you next time on the Half Court Report.